I love this part. Let me make sure. Yes, we are live. Welcome, welcome, Midwest Elevation, to another Tuesday. We are here. My name is Renee Zukin, and I host these conversations to raise the collective conscious, helping us all do the inner work to see the outer change. So I hope you all are able to join us either live or on the replay. Come in, say hello. I'll look at my phone. I'll try not to be too distracted by it. But you know, you people are so beautiful. Let us know you're here. There we are. We are officially live. So thank you for joining us today. We have an amazing guest. Miss Deveshi Blue is here, and she's going to talk to us about healing our hearts, release being a narcissist magnet. Now, I may or may not know a few things about that. Well, we all do, right? As sensitive people in the world, we certainly can sometimes attract some trouble. But let me tell you a little bit about Deveshi before we dig into this. She is your spiritual Sherpa. I love it. She is a highly sensitive and empathic woman who has worked hard to heal her head and her divine heart after suffering from emotional abuse and PTSD. We're so grateful you're here, Deveshi. She is keenly aware of the impact that negative drama queens and controlling narcissistic people have had on her life. Through research, study, training, and over 30 years of spiritual practices, Deveshi found antidotes to cope with and counter narcissist abusive influence in her life. She now has freedom from being pulled into the dramas, peace of mind, refined understanding of herself as a spiritual being, and a deeper connection with her inner self, experiencing joy and light. And she teaches her clients to do the same. So, who doesn't want more of that? I am so excited that you are here, Deveshi. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome, and thank you, Renee. I'm so happy to be here, and I feel very honored to be with you and your guests on Midwestern Elevation, elevating the planet, the consciousness.
Yeah.
So needed, especially these days, and the divine energy principles are key to that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So tell me, you know, you spoke a little bit about your journey, obviously yourself as a highly sensitive person and as an empath. You know, how did you find that that was actually part of the experience of pulling in these negative people in your life?
Right, great question. Well, some of it was in hindsight. Some of it was, my story is that I use a quote from the Bhagavad Gita, which many people have re-quoted, and it's great because things become common knowledge and that helps all of us. And it was that um, all misery comes from suffering. Excuse me, all suffering comes from misery comes from suffering, comes from a desire. And if you can root out that desire,
Mm,
then you can root out the suffering. And that sounded odd to me, but the quote is kind of goes in this arc of you have a desire, you want something, you have an expectation to receive it. Then when that's thwarted in some way, you're disappointed.
mm,
From that disappointed comes a whole cluster of feelings.
yes.
Strongest one, besides resentment, is going to be anger,
Hmm.
very strong, and it keeps you looped in to why not. It should have, and you keep looped in. Problem is over time, we forget who we are, and it creates our character, not how we want it to be, not who we say we are, because of this little loop that goes on. And then that creates your destiny. Now, up to the character, I was getting it because in my life, the light and the dark have been my greatest influences. So the light for me has been love, God, spirit, meditation, my meditation teacher, all those experiences of love from within shining out. The darkness has been where there hasn't been love, where it's been withheld or rejected or manipulated. And that started with, as with a lot of people, probably your listeners can relate to some of this, to, families of origin and those dynamics. And mine came from a dynamic that was alcoholic and narcissistic. And even though I was aware of stuff, there was not like an understanding of exactly what it was until later on. And then those awakenings, you know, gradually brought me to more of a place of peace, right understanding, joy, and self-reliance.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
can relate to that, right?
I can, yes. And I'm sure many of our listeners out there, we've had relationships, or, as as a uh, one of my mentors like to say, we all come from two imperfect parents, one way or another, our families of origin, as you said, have imperfections. So we're all kind of dealing with something maybe that doesn't really jive with who
Mm.
we are. And then certainly, I I don't know anybody who hasn't had a bad relationship at some point in their life. Or
Right,
not
right,
the whole relationship, but have an experience where looking back, you're realizing kind of the the toxicity of that.
right,
Um,
right.
yeah. So
Yeah, it's ancestral too, right? So it just
mm,
gets handed down, handed down, handed down. And then there becomes these patterns of behavior that if we don't insert new information and new ways of being, continue. And then we aren't happy because we're looking outside of ourselves, even to other people for that love. And if
mhm,
we can come into relationship already having that state of love, not only will we be happier, but we will draw happier people to us, right?
mm, absolutely, absolutely. And being able to have sort of that clarity and the peace of mind of,
Right.
when something doesn't feel right, instead of thinking, oh, I'm sure it's fine. you know, the red flags are flying, and we're
Right.
like, oh, but, oh, but,
Uh, yeah.
so being able to heed those calls because you know, because you know who you are. I think that is genius. The principle that you carry there. So how did you get to this place where, or like, I'm sure, as life ebbs,
Yeah.
flows, we have all sorts of twists and turns. What have you found are the tools that help you the most?
Well, to what you were saying, we can get used to anything and it becomes our new normal. And then when you have a new experience, you can kind of sabotage that by saying, yeah, but. So I have this huge, loving, fantastic, bright, inner light experience. And this little voice going, yeah, but mom says, or sister says. And and so instead of listening to them, I had to just choose, make a commitment. And
Mm-hmm.
that quote helped me greatly because it just popped up for me a couple of years ago. I'm like, oh, now I can look at the destiny part. Oh, I have been drawing that kind of person to me. Now,
Mm-hmm.
some people don't. They're already, they've already leveled up. And there are hidden patterns and hidden ways of being that until you run into someone with that dynamic may not come up.
Hmm.
Then you want to have the knowledge and the awareness to have the power in that moment to ground, shield, protect, counter, and just know, oh, I see it coming. It's not just I'm waving the red flag, but it's like, oh, I see it way over there. Okay, I'm gonna
Right.
do whatever, I'm gonna do this, or I'm not gonna engage, or I'm just gonna have a sense of humor about it because it's not real, it's all made up, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, and making the choice to not engage,
Mm.
I think that that's huge. Yeah, hi Marty. She says not good to get used to those voices. She says for sure, but because the things are going to happen. People, you can't control other people and how they're going to be, and so um,
Well, it's all an inside job. And that the more that we become aware, more that we're shining a light, the easier it is to see. So you're not getting used to, as the gal was just saying, but becoming aware of that that's just there. So the mind never stops. That's its job. I love the word the mind, the ego, the
mm,
spirit, the body, they work a certain way. So the mind is always going, sometimes very, very subtly and quietly, and sometimes very loud, but we can intercede on our own behalf. And I wanted to speak about empathy because for me, not only does everybody have some empathy on average, at least you're born with the capacity for that,
right.
but I I think especially when we're spiritual beings and we're on a spiritual path, if we are not cognizant of both sides, the light and dark, we can get tripped up, right? Even with our own empathy. So I wanted to, since we only have a half an hour, to go right into, if you don't mind, see if your audience would like to hear about, I call it the empathy inquiry. And I listen to not only my spiritual teacher for the last 3.5 decades, but to psychologists and psychiatrists. And at the end here, I have this beautiful PowerPoint. It's also in PDF that people can have. It's really pretty.
Oh, wonderful.
And on the one half is empathy, on the other half is narcissism. So you can kind of look and see for yourself and for other people in your life, like where in the spectrum are you? Because it's only when we go, oh, I'm a good person. Oh, how am I being right now? Did I, sabotage myself? Was I being a little snarky? Was I withholding? Was I being generous? Was it being kind? If you're constantly, and it's why they call it a practice, because you just have to keep doing
it is a practice, right? And we're all a little bit bad and a little.
You don't know what to ask, and then you always have to just start again. Forgive yourself, be compassionate. Celebrate and pat yourself on the back for good stuff. So, in empathy, there's a kind of an arc also. So you can be, and there might be more, but we'll just go over the general ones. So you could be overly empathetic. You could be a rescuer. Overly positive. Overly forgiving. Or maybe you had a narcissistic parent. Now, if you're overly empathetic, so empathy is fantastic, wonderful, one of the best things on the planet that makes us human, makes us so not only relatable, but the healing force that we can be for ourselves and others. So classically, you're caring, care deeply, you're compassionate, conscientious of other people, you reflect back their feelings, you're very respectful. However, especially as women, we can try too hard to be pleasers, be overly pleasing, and then end up having poor boundaries and not understanding, well, I did this, why is that happening? And someone who's empathetic or very empathetic can be called a highly sensitive person. I'm not talking overly sensitive, like, I can't believe you, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about somebody who can actually, more than sympathy, oh, I feel for you, slightly different than compassion, where, wow, I want to do something for you. The empathy is more and more you can almost energetically feel a room, feel what's going on. Other people are like, what are you talking about?
Yes.
It's your empathy radar. You can see.
I love that empathy radar.
Yeah,
Definitely.
You just feel out where people are. Problem is that you can end up being kind of codependent, which is kind of a strategy of the ego to stay safe. And you can become like, that can stress you out and you can feel exhausted. Now, if you're overly empathetic, just draw it back in a little bit, pull your boundaries in a little, like, oh, I'm contained here, right? If you're a rescuer, which a lot of us are, this often triggers what's called a trauma triangle. You've got the rescuer, the abuser, and the victim. And if you're stepping in, oh, I want to save you, you automatically disempowered two people beside yourself, right? It can, tend to be a problem. You put yourself in a problem spot because narcissistic people, who we'll talk about in a second, can manipulate that. And I'm reading off, sorry for not directly the camera, because with my new computer, this is not loaded. So they can manipulate you because they'll play the victim and the martyr. And do what I call, what people end up doing is what I call getting behind the shooter. You don't want to be a target, so you get behind the shooter, like agreeing, ignoring, pretending. Problem is you can become weaponized. Gossip, mean-spiritedness, rejecting people, or worse. And then they can turn right around and then blame you for all of it because what you were doing. So it's a no-win situation. For those of us who are empathetic, you could be an empath, but you can just be empathetic or highly empathetic. You could be overly positive. You don't have a really sunny attitude, be really positive, but there can be a naivety to that and a loss of innocence when you realize that not everybody is good. If you have the tendency to, which this was me for a long time. I see one good, grain in somebody, like in the Bible, where they're like Sodom and Gomorrah. Well, if I could find one good person, it's like, nah, no, no. But then you kind of are ignoring, denying, or avoiding what's not good because it's uncomfortable. And narcissistic people can, exploit that, and they'll see it as permission to misbehave, and they'll keep pushing, 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 which would be like this, pushing, pushing, pushing into your boundary. And if you find you're not breathing very deeply or fully, that can be because your boundaries are pressing in on you. You need openness. Don't you love to like go to the ocean and it's like you're way out? It gives you this sense of freedom. And then you get into a small room and your awareness boing, bounces off.
Yeah.
I kind of think
we don't have oceans here in the Midwest, but we do have vast prairie land.
Yes, and prairies. Yes, yes, yes.
But yeah, that difference.
Sounding. Well, that's a couple of them. Shall I move on?
Yeah. We've got some folks out there that are loving this. Marty's loving this. Hi, Kirsten. I just wanted to say a quick hello.
Is that Miss Eisenhower? No.
Yeah. What's that?
Is that Miss Eisenhower?
No.
Nope. Oh, good.
Different. That's okay. So, welcome. Yes, I just want to reiterate. These are like, I'm fascinated about all the, it's a continuum, right? And we all land in different places along this, empathic narcissism. Like, we have our moments, and it's really fantastic to hear you put it out there in such an organized way. I mean, it feels so much more clear to me, and hopefully to our listeners as well, to think about it
you get clarity when you see specifics. Right? Then you could dig down a little bit more, because you're like, I'm not sure. It's sort of, it's like, oh my goodness. So I'll move through the rest of these quickly. So you could be an overly forgiving person. You give second chance, third chance. I used to always give people 3 chances. By that time, they've already set, no, this is the way the dynamic is going to go. It can be very dangerous, because they can push your boundaries, take advantage of, if you have a spiritual intention to forgiveness, and I always get this term wrong, oponopono.
Oh, yeah. I know what
it's like, you're going to keep forgiving all day long. It's like, so what you need to do is be more judicious in handing out your forgiveness, because there are things that don't really deserve, and people don't deserve, not only you being vulnerable and sharing stuff with them, because they haven't built the trust yet, not truly, not deeply, not like a real friend. And if you just forgive, it can give them permission again, right? And then if you had a narcissistic parent, that can end up being kind of habituated as normal behavior. And it, I've sometimes when I sit around and I've talked with my siblings, and we've said when other people hear us, they're like, oh my gosh. And it's like normal to us. Like,
right. Yeah. You don't know.
Like you're getting a punishment that's extreme, and you're like, it's him, right? And they're like, oh my gosh. But,
Right. Yeah. If that's not your experience, how would you know?
And unfortunately, we start to attract that to ourselves. So what parents can do is, just like any narcissist, they can be controlling, selfish, very drama driven, and shaming. And then you end up living from a very limited, self-beliefs and behavior patterns, and then you don't thrive from that. And I think that's really sad.
Yeah.
So maybe does any of your can any of your audience right now kind of relate to any of those?
Yeah, let's see. There is a short lag between between our Zoom and so we'll see. Yeah, if this is resonating with you, please let us know. It certainly offered me a lot of clarity. And the piece about, the boundaries, and how that's really which is, I like to think of it differently from like a wall, right? We put up walls, but walls, maybe it's just a semantics thing, right? Walls can keep you in, right? Whereas boundaries, you know, they could be very clear lines, but it's giving yourself the, you know, the power to choose who you let in.
Yes, yes, it's a choice. Yeah, it's choosing, which is conscious, which means you have to make an effort
Right.
rather than just going with the flow and hoping everybody will get along. And it's like, you know, seeing in each moment, how's it being, so that you can make adjustments, just like you would, you know, adjust the dial on something if it's too loud or too hot or whatever, right?
Right.
Make
Right.
your adjustments. So from listening to the psychotherapist, there's also 5 major types of narcissists,
Mm.
starting with the classic, and there's grandiose, malignant, covert or stealth, and communal. And we'll go through these a little faster. So your classic is, you know, maybe they had a narcissist as a parent, and that's
Sure.
what they learned. And over time, they lay down a pattern, their chemical synapses are a certain way, and there is no empathy.
Mm.
That's odd and sad, but there's no empathy. So they're programmed not to care. They may be deeply wounded,
Yeah.
and they may be entitled, self-promoting, manipulative, and controlling. And they have the tendency in relationships to minimize other people's emotions because theirs are the most important, and then
It's
gaslight
not
you.
that bad.
Yeah, you didn't say that. I didn't mean that. Oh, you're just exaggerating. You're too sensitive. You're hormonal. Oh, gee, can you just like honor, you know, what's being said?
Mm.
So often they're very deeply, deeply insecure when they seem very confident and brash even, but
Mm.
it's really hiding insecurity because they're constantly seeking agreement, right? They're
Mm.
constantly seeking
Mhm.
agreement. Did you know? They're constantly looking. And you know, do you know that the Pope, all last year around the world, his message talk was around gossip.
Oh, interesting.
Of course, it was about, you know, the Catholics, but it, it's people. That's all we got here is people, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
What he said, this is amazing, Renee. I love it, and I use this now. He said that for him, the definition of gossip is emotional terrorism, because you're going and dropping your bombs, destroying people's lives, reputations, peace of mind, trust in one another, and then you're just walking away all self-satisfied. It's a very toxic way of being. And I try to catch myself. And there's people that know, oh, that's right, you don't gossip. And I catch myself, I'm like, oh, I was just complaining. No, you're just telling me. I'm like, no, it was a complaint.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm trying to, you know, let's focus on the highest, because you want to complain.
Right.
Then
Right.
you're not really empowered if you're complaining. So the other thing about that gossiping and agreement is they can start a campaign. So if you notice, you get this feeling in your gut, something's off. You see the big red flag waving, and you just kind of, they're constantly scanning. They've got
Mm.
a scanner going do, 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 to see, and it's different than empathy. I'm telling you, it is. Some people have tried to enmesh them and to collapse them. They're not. They're scanning because they don't have the empathy. They're scanning to see where your weak and soft parts are to utilize that for their own. That's their
Yep.
ego strategy. So I say be judicious in getting to know people. Trust your gut.
Mm.
You don't have to share everything. Have 2 or 3, even Brene Brown says 2 or 3 really good friends that you can share everything with. That you know you're not going to be judged, and it's safe, and it's not going to come back at you in some odd way. So I know that feeling. It's like working in salons.
Oh,
This
yeah.
person could have only been this way with me because they had this conversation with someone else. You can either feel it or hear
Mm.
something, like, I haven't talked to you and you have something going on. Yeah. So they
Mhm.
can campaign against you. Have you ever had this experience where you just like know that people are like trying to get agreement everywhere that you're the
Yeah.
bad one?
Yeah.
Kind of campaigning. It's just, they're playing the martyr and you're the demon, and
Yeah.
who wants to be stuck with that kind of negativity? So I think when we hear it, we're like, I don't really want to talk about it. Not like make somebody bad, awful, or wrong for it,
Right.
but
Right.
just, let's not go there. I think, I see that. I've had that experience, and this is what I choose to do about it. I either don't engage or
Mhm.
set a boundary, or
I got really good
or
at saying to people, "Oh, I hear you," and just
yeah,
leave it at that.
that's a good one. I like that one.
Now everybody I talk to is going to be like, "But wait." I
Me,
really do. I really
I
do
mean,
hear
some
you,
way.
but also I'm hearing you, and I'm not going to continue
Yeah.
this
Well, it's
discussion.
yeah, I think it's fine in lots of situations to just take things in and be like, got it, got it, got it. I mean, when you're coaching, it's just repeating what the person says. Like they get to be seen and heard and
Right,
acknowledged, but you don't have to engage. You don't have to go into
right.
viewing yourself, your world, your reality through their
Yeah,
screen.
yeah. You don't have to take it on.
Because people want that agreement. It's like, you're fine without my agreement.
Hmm.
You get your inner experience, and that's fine. But psychologists say 10 or 15% of the population is narcissistic. But I would say after this last couple of months, that number has gone
You
up
may
to
have seen a few more
30%,
come
40%.
out of the woodwork.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So pompous narcissist, grandiose is pompous, controlling, desires attention, never apologizes, never takes responsibility, and uses alternative facts to shame and blame, and they're real drama queens. Who do we know?
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
Mhm. And then a malignant one, these keep stepping up, is super
Oh,
mean.
malignant.
They're
What a
super mean.
word.
I know, isn't that like a tumor? Even criminal, really big bad behaviors, lying, stealing, cheating. Bernie Madoff, and now we see Donald Trump. It's like, and the thing is, the psychologists say when there are no regulations, no strictures, no controls, a narcissistic personality will expand. So you'll go from narcissism to sociopath to psychopath. So, and they've said that, people that are just so wealthy and nobody can check them.
Yeah.
If they don't have that personal integrity, they can just go, I don't care if I destroy the planet and,
Hmm.
invest in all these weapons and it kills people everywhere because
Yeah.
I'm the only one that matters. And a lot of people use money to buffer from other people's
Mhm.
pain. That's the thing about compassion and empathy, is you can feel other people's pain. And if you don't want to because it's uncomfortable, you might want to just slow down, take some
Mm.
breaths.
Mm.
You want to be around people that care,
Mhm.
and you want to care, right? And then what's weird is there's a covert stealth narcissist, and they can play the victim and the martyr and poor pitiful me, and they can be passive aggressive, may seem really depressed all the time. And if you try and help them with some ideas, they can be reactive
Mm.
and arrogant. Oh, but being right about being wrong kind of a thing, like, but it is awful and they are awful and I am awful, and
Right.
oh, all about you. It's just the flip side of that.
Sure,
And
sure.
the last one is communal, which is someone who takes it out into the world, into, say social justice or movements,
Mhm.
and they're not really caring about the people they're serving. They just want to look good,
Oh,
and,
interesting. Yeah, I
and
got
they may even dress really nice. So that's just some part of the beginning stage of where I work with people,
it. Mhm.
to if you can see that and deal with that. And there's
Yeah.
lots of tools for that. There's energetic tools, spiritual tools, psychological tools to deal with those energies, to clear yourself out, and then to start moving up, because most of this is happening on the outside and we are impacted by other people. But
Yeah.
how to lessen that, how to counter that,
Mhm.
protect ourselves, and then to move inside and start lifting ourselves up in a constant, consistent way, that the quality of our life becomes brighter and more joyful, and we're more reliant on spirit
Mm.
and joy. I mean, like, there's so
Yeah.
much fun to be fully self-expressed, which you can't be when you're tiptoeing around other people.
Right.
That feeling's like,
Right.
the drag.
And releasing that, like, um, I just have that sense, when you are being careful and tiptoeing and, it's smaller and smaller and smaller and, doing that inner work just as you describe, expands you and everything that you can, um, you know, bring out into the world. Um, and I just love that. I love that you brought these pieces today, because I think it's really important to be able to clarify and name those things, um, and where, you know, you fit along the continuum, or what, you know, what parts are yours and what parts aren't yours, and what you can let go of to
Mhm.
do that, work. So I know that you work with people in a variety of modalities.
Mhm.
And before we go, I do want, if you want to let us know kind of what's up next for you. Do you have a Facebook group that you
Yeah,
curate as a safe space for folks?
yeah.
About that.
I have a course, Shine Your Light, and that has its own Facebook group, its own community. I have one of the modules in that. I do like a $97 just so people can try it on, and
Hmm.
that deals with ants, automatic negative thoughts. It deals with being big, boundaries, integrity, and generosity. It deals with creating a new story, looking at empathy, all of that. So that's in one of the modules. That's available. I also can do, and can I screen share really quickly
Yeah.
with you? So I do have Perfectly Powerful Peace, which
Yes.
is my Facebook group for anybody to come onto. This is going to be, I think, in the show notes, is
Oh,
you can get
beautiful.
this Meditate Easier starting today, which is just
Hmm.
a nice little PDF where you can kind of um,
Yeah, this looks great.
and
Yeah, and I will be putting the links for sure so that folks can access.
yeah,
I'll put it down there in the comments.
and you can, I'd be glad to do a 30-minute conversation with anybody who wants some ideas, some support, know what else I can offer. Then these are some divine feminine energy printables that I've created,
Ooh.
series of those that I've done in my challenges. This is the start of my my web page that just talks about, you know, if you're not being honored, and
Mhm.
um, what we pardon me, what we can bring to that. What are the these are the different modules that
Oh yeah,
side of it, and I just try to give as much value as I possibly can.
this is beautiful.
So all of those, if I haven't given it to you yet, I'll make sure that you get it. And I would love to speak to anyone, support anyone. And I was just in the Feminine Frequency Festival, and I'm going to be in a giveaway. So some of these things will be in the giveaway, and I'll share that with you also.
That sounds fantastic.
And
Well,
then I'm going to do my own giveaway and virtual summit. So I'll be inviting you if you want to come. Because this, you know,
that sounds amazing. Yes. Well, thank you so much for being here, for bringing us so much good information, and for offering so many pieces of the work that you do. I'm excited to get those links in the comments for everybody here. And of course, if you're watching the replay, let us know what speaks to you, what questions you have, and we will come back and answer those for you as well. So again, thank you so much, Deveshi, for being
You're
here
so welcome.
today.
Thank you. I enjoyed the conversation. It's
Yeah,
very wordy. It was a lot of information. But like I said, it's just a single piece.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Just a taste, just a taste. It's wonderful.
I mean, I was doing some sometimes I park it on a dead brain, so I have to wait for that train to come around. Some energetic healing today, and it was based on a shamanic healing journey with bright flames and clearing emotions and energies out today. And wow, was that powerful?
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, you do some amazing work. I'm so glad you're here. And thank you to everybody out there in
Yes, thank
Midwest
you, everybody.
Elevation for joining us. We will be back next Tuesday, um, continuing the conversation of empathy and highly sensitive people. My dear friend Julie Staub will be joining us next week. She is an expert in HSP, and we will be talking about the tools you can use to help navigate the world as an HSP, a highly sensitive person, which so many of us here
Yeah.
are. So again, thank you, Deveshi. Thank you all out there in Midwest Elevation, and we'll see you again next week.
Bless